Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to my channel. I'm Tiffany Benson, one part of Team Benson, and it finally feels like fall. Like, even though it's 113 today, well, it will be 113 today, right now it's like 89 degrees. So finally, to us desert people, that's a sign of fall. So guys, since it's finally starting to monsoon rain, which it rained again last night, so my garden got a lot of energy that it needs from the sky. So as you know, once it rains, your garden kind of explodes, and it's because the rain does a lot. It adds nitrogen with thunderstorms. It adds a lot of just things to your garden that it needs. So that's why you get kind of that explosion of growth in your garden. But I want to talk about a couple of tips for you guys for preparing your garden for the fall, and what you should be doing and what you shouldn't be doing. So tip number one, guys, is to pull out anything that is dead or dying. Now, if something has a little bit of sun skull, like my eggplant back there, or my shishito peppers, which are not dead or dying, you want to leave those because those are just going to be in their recovery mode. But if something is actually dead, or it has just insect damage, or it has insects on it, or it's covered in spider mites, which is something that probably a lot of plants have here in Arizona right now, you want to pull those because you want to start getting your soil ready. You want your garden to be free of pests, so that then you're going into a nice, fresh, clean season. So tip number two is going to go along with tip number one. So if you have any type of plants that are not dead or dying, so they are not covered in like aphids or spider mites or something like that, but they're kind of looking like they're in recovery mode, help those plants out. Trim off some of the bad leaves or the bad branches or something like that. I'm going to show you guys my mint plant so you guys can kind of see what I'm talking about. So this poor mint plant is totally in recovery mode. As you can see, it's starting to grow all of these new little leaves. All these new little babies are coming in. But I need to go in and get rid of all of these old branches so that then the plant isn't focusing its energy on trying to create new leaves and trying to save these old branches. So I'm going to give the plant a break and just kind of pull out all of these old branches and leaves. So that's going to also go the same for my shishito peppers, my eggplants, and my basil. So I'm going to make sure that I have the plant in its healthiest state. So with all the newest leaves that it possibly has and everything that is just 100% going on with the plant, that's the growth I want to keep. Alright, so tip number three is going to be provide your plants with a low shade cloth. So right now I'm putting in some seeds, which if you guys didn't watch yesterday's video, I planted a lot of beans, and I want to make sure that those beans are completely protected and happy. And then I also planted out the Chinese long noodle beans that were already started, that I started in the house. So I want to provide them with as much shade as possible. So I'm going to lower that shade cloth to where it's pretty much right on top of it, and even though there's seeds in the ground, they still need the shade. So make sure that you are providing that. I'll show you guys what I'm talking about. So my shade cloth is just right over the plants. If you peek in here, you'll be able to see the bean starts, and then also there are seeds in the ground. So I am just putting the shade cloth right over the ground. So just enough room for if you have seedlings for them not to be smushed, but you want to really make sure that you are covering that ground so it's not getting the full frontal blast of the Arizona sun. Tip number four. Your fall winter crops are not ready to go out yet, but you should be starting them indoors. All you want to do is make sure that you are up potting these. So these are going to need a little bit of room to grow. As you can see, there's a lot of leaves on this Swiss chard. Give it some room to grow, up pot it, give it a little bit of fertilizer, but do not plant it outside yet, because although we're getting these rains and it's nice right now in the morning, it's gonna get hot later. Tip number 5, don't throw out your old potting soil. You can easily refresh it. So what I like to do is I like to use the old potting soil in my big beds to kind of raise the soil level before adding compost. So what I do is I take all the soil out of the pots, because I do have container pots as well. If you don't have big beds, you can just kind of refresh the container pots with them in there. So take out the actual dead plant, or if it already died or whatever, but fluff up the soil a little bit. Don't know what that was. Fluff up the soil a little bit and add some fertilizer. So add some fertilizer to it, fluff it up a little bit, maybe add a little bit of soil if it needs some more, or take that soil, add it to your beds, but don't throw it out because it still has some use. Okay guys, we have a lot of city noise right now, so I think I'm actually going to go, oh, maybe it'll give a break. But the last tip, tip number 6, is going to be make sure you're not planting in hot compost. Now, when I got compost from the AZ Worm Farm, they said that it was hot. I knew that it was still hot. It wasn't done kind of cooking yet all the way. So, but I let my compost kind of chill in my beds and kind of get used to being in my garden and kind of adapting the organisms and microorganisms that are in the dirt. So make sure that when you're putting compost in your beds, you want to give it that time, that couple of weeks to kind of go through and kind of just develop that. Okay, the leaf blower stopped blowing its leaves. But you want to give your beds kind of time to kind of just kind of develop an ecosystem in that bed so that it can help grow your plants. Also, if you're planting in compost that's not completely finished, I have done this before, and I actually did this with compost that I got from the big box store when I first started my garden back here. It will wreak havoc on your plants. It will take a lot of nutrients from your plants, and it'll also just kind of have funguses and just different things that you just don't want in your garden. So before planting in them, put the compost down and let it just sit. Keep watering it and let it sit. So I hope those were useful tips for you guys, and I hope you are getting out there and starting to plant your fall gardens and starting to prepare for them. Not even just planting on the outside, but also starting your seeds and planting them on the inside. Because Arizona will go from blazing hot summer to fall in the matter of a couple of days. So make sure that you are prepared for that, and you don't want your plants to either be shocked by being out too early or not having enough time for them really to develop before the nighttime temperatures drop. So make sure you're planting yourself a garden, because even a small space can provide you with tons of food. Bye guys.